Let's try that again. Good afternoon, friends. This is Dennis. It is 12:15 on Monday, July 7th. It's a beautiful day here in Atlanta. It is sunny. It is hot. I hope everybody's doing really well and that you had a great holiday weekend and that you were able to be with people that you love. You're having fun. You're being relatively safe, at least, I hope, to some degree, right? We're going to give folks just another minute to join us. I hope everybody's great and doing well. Make sure you find yourself in a place that's kind of comfortable, spot that you can avoid distractions, a spot that you can allow yourself to just be as still as you want to be right now. And that's an important thing so that you can kind of be attuned to what's going on within yourself. We're going to do a body scan where you kind of you need to be aware of what's going on from just above the top of your head to just below the soles of your feet in terms of just kind of what kind of posture am I holding? How am I feeling right now? Am I holding tension in my forehead? Is my face all scrunched up? Am I holding tension in my jaw? Are my shoulders really tight? Am I holding a lot of kind of weirdness in my back, either upper back, lower back, whatever? Roll it off, wiggle it out, get yourself as comfortable as you can. Feet on the floor, comfy spot. And what we're going to do is we're going to do some breathing. As you breathe in, you want to breathe in through your nose. You're going to just kind of receive a sense of peace, a sense of calm, a sense of just, I'm okay. I'm safe where I am right now. And as you breathe out, you let go of all those interruptions, all those things that take us out of the here and now. Excuse me. All those things that distract us, all those things that just kind of pull us somewhere other than here. And we want to just kind of dispel those as we breathe out through our mouth. And so I direct everybody to pay attention to your breathing as we begin.
Inhale. Hold. Exhale. Hold. 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 Finished.
All right, friends. So we resume our regular breathing. Make sure I've got sound, I've got visual. Okay. We resume our regular breathing. And I kind of want everybody to reflect for a second. We were talking last week at the end of the week on this sense of what does it mean to be a person of faith versus what does it mean to be a person that has this sense of kind of knowing. If I know something, it's very different than being a faith-filled person. And as someone who's a believer, someone who's a searcher, someone who's a seeker, it's easy to fall into the prideful side of things. It's easy to fall into the arrogant side of things, and we don't want to go there. And so I thought it would be helpful to kind of disassemble the idea of what faith is versus this sense of surety, arrogance, knowing that it's very easy to fall into. We can get very dogmatic about faith, and that's, I think, very destructive. I think it's something that really can destroy that relationship that we have with God, because each and every one of us is growing and changing, and we're called to be growing and changing constantly. And so there's this idea of faith as being an act of trust versus arrogance being this idea of assumption. I'm assuming that I know how this is going to be. And this is something where I was in a conversation with somebody and they were talking about, if God showed up today, what would be the first thing that God would do? And I'm like, that's a question that's just loaded with assumption within it. Is it not? I mean, to think that the first thing that God does is going to be the most significant thing. That's a very human approach to order of operations. I mean, do the most important thing first, not necessarily. But it's this kind of weird kind of thing. But here's better put. Let's think of it. Faith is something where we're going on a journey, and I'm going to continue on that journey, even though I don't know how it's going to end. You just keep going. That's a faith-filled act. Whereas an arrogant act would be one knowing exactly how you think it should end and how it's going to end. That takes any sense of wonder out of it. It rips the gifts of the Spirit completely out of a situation when I enter into something knowing exactly how it's going to be. Even when it comes to the divine, that's tricky business. It's also this idea of, like, I hate to say this, but this sense of winning is not really one that is intrinsic to a life of faith. Because oftentimes the lessons come through the loss. The lesson comes through the experience of struggle. And so, worthy of thinking about that. Faith is also something where there's an act of listening that takes place, whereas arrogance often is a speaking thing. Where is the wonder within this? Faith is open to being corrected, being told, you're not doing it the way we want it done. Okay, well, that's okay. Or maybe it's just the approach and realizing that just doesn't work. That's faith. Whereas arrogance is unwilling to hear another voice. And this is one that we really can get into struggle with when we're sure of something. When you feel called to something, it doesn't mean that it's necessarily what everybody else feels you're called to. How do you go about it in those cases? How do you approach that situation if obviously it seems like you're trying to put the square peg in the round hole? That's a situation where your peace isn't received. We can kind of take that one straight back to scripture and go, well, my peace isn't received here. Let me move on. Let me try this someplace else. And maybe it's not there. You're supposed to do it. But worthy of thought. A sense of gratitude, I think, is the thing that's an important one versus this walking with privilege. I think that gratitude is the salve that makes an unknowing okay. When someone is respectful of the time that you afford them, with the attention that you give to them, when people are thankful for your presence rather than having an expectation. Whereas there's this sense of kind of privilege or entitlement that I think oftentimes goes hand in hand with this sense of knowing, sense of arrogance. We see this scripturally take place where there's that one leper who returns to thank Christ. And then there's the other 9 that are healed, but they're not grateful. I got this. What do you do with it? Gratitude needs to be what kind of pervades above anything else. Thanks. It's most significant. And then we have this idea of a faith which is reliant upon God. Let me see how things play out versus being God and forcing others to do things or putting a sense of control upon others. That's That's something that we're seeing oftentimes with people who claim to be people of faith, but that faith in the way that it gets carried out ends up being something of control of other people. Control and faith are in direct opposition. That it doesn't work like that. If you're a person of faith, then you believe that where someone is where they should be, ought to be. We believe that each person should be able to flourish where they're planted. If they need to flee something else to carry that out, well, that's exactly what Christ did in his infancy. As he was an immigrant into Egypt, he was a refugee fleeing for his life. All firstborn sons were being put to death. Faith builds connections. It allows each and every person to have a sense of equal access, whereas arrogance has this tendency to want to build up thrones or cathedrals, these seats of power, versus allowing everyone to have the power that they are given by God. Finally, faith is rooted in humility. And what arrogance really is it's masked insecurity. What arrogance is I know beating chest because you don't know. Whereas faith is this beautiful, flourishing curiosity and sense of wonder. It doesn't know. And it's okay with that. That's the beauty of a curious faith. And that's not something we run into very often. But what my hope is that as we self-reflect and we look within each and every one of our own hearts, that we realize that we all need to be more curious and have a greater sense of wonder. We need to allow ourselves to flourish and others to flourish wherever they may be. And our role within that is not to be a prohibitive, controlling force, but rather a helpful flourishing of the love of God that multiplies. And so, friends, on this Monday, as we embark upon yet another week, may we seek to be a love that assists in terms of care, in terms of letting people be, in terms of providing for what others need. This is the call. This is the way. We are hopefully going to respond to it with love. I hope y'all are good to yourselves. Y'all be good to each other. Hit that like button, share this, and I'll see y'all soon. Peace be with y'all.